It's been more than 20 years since the last time you had a legendary speech at Rio. How do you see the world situation in past 20 years?
A lot has changed in 20 years. For one thing, environmental issues, now we are seeing climate change come to pass. Mm-hmm. It's happening now. So that is a very different situation than we were 20 years ago. Politically, going back to the UN 10 years after Rio and then 20 years after Rio,
right.
In 2012 for Rio Plus 20, I really saw one of the big changes is the rise in corporate power. And now we have corporations whose revenues are bigger than whole economies of nations. Mm-hmm. I mean, Walmart is, very high up there if you rank it as a country. It's like 57th largest or wealthiest country in the world if it were a country. I mean, this is the new political world that we live in. However, corporations are not committed to voters. They're committed to profit and shareholders. So having this as a totally different value system and these political powers, because they are political, they have a huge influence on politics today. That is a major part of the reality of how we can deal with the environment in our political landscape today. Mm-hmm. Very disturbing.
What about the change in the people side?
On the people side, however, I think we can be more positive. I would not still be working in this field in this way if it weren't for the incredible people that I have met along the way. And now, 2014, I truly feel that there is a sea change coming. I don't know when, but the reality of climate change and the change of our environment actually coming to pass, people are forced to become more aware. We also are seeing this crisis of economy as the globalized economy and the old economic structures are starting to crumble, and institutions as well. We are seeing some shift towards something new. We don't know what that is. And I think there is something building, and I'm very glad for it, that is, starting to be what the new way will be.
Since your last visit, Japan had a huge nuclear accident in Fukushima, as you know. What was your reaction as an environmental activist?
Well, it was a big shock for me on many different levels. First of all, of course, as an environmentalist, nuclear power is like the first environmental issue. It's what started the movement. Then as someone who lives just across the ocean from you in Japan, it's been very interesting to watch my community still is very engaged in what's happening in Japan and in Fukushima because we are so concerned about our oceans, the health of our oceans. So that's been very interesting to see. For myself, someone who's come to Japan many, many times, it was heartbreaking. Initially, I was very worried about my friends, my family. I had one young child and another on the way. I was very concerned about bringing my children to come to Japan. Right. The idea of not being able to come here or being worried about my friends here and my family here was kind of unimaginable, and it only made me feel even stronger about this path towards a more sustainable relationship with energy that we need.
How is a Trans-Pacific Partnership, TPP, considered by environmental activists like you in Canada?
Environmental activists as well as social justice activists. And I'm happy to say that I see these activists coming together because people are recognizing the interconnections between justice and environmental sustainability, democracy. They're just absolutely inextricable. But yes, here is another intergovernmental agreement that basically leaves the people behind, that is happening behind closed doors, that is being pushed through without much in the media or much announcement by the government. And it's just following along this path of all of a sudden the public realizing that the corporation is having more power even than our municipal, provincial, or even federal governments. So I mean, this is a very big challenge, because what power do we really have over these agreements? I think it's really indicative of the fact we need to reclaim our democratic processes, and we need to really revitalize our whole system of governance, because this is unacceptable.
How much is TPP covered by Canadian media?
We don't hear much about it.
You don't hear much about it.
I haven't even heard too much about it. Your small watchdog community networks that are trying to raise awareness, but ultimately this is not something, if you said to a regular person, what do you think of TPP? They wouldn't know what you're talking about.
What about nuclear power plants? How is media covering nuclear power plants as a positive thing or negative thing?
Well, I wouldn't even really know. I think it probably has a conflict aspect to it, but because it's become entrenched in the East, where we do have our nuclear power plants, that's where you might have more media coverage. But out west, we don't often hear about it, and it's something that's a little bit more foreign and happens in Japan and France.
Right. Okay. After Fukushima incident, there are big protests is raising anti-nuclear energy and stuff like that, but young people still have trouble keeping motivated. Would you give them a message, please?
It's amazing for me to come to Tokyo and to see completely functional city, completely functional Tokyo that I know without nuclear power. I mean, I understand now that nuclear power is not being produced. That's incredible. I think that is proof that we do not need to make this choice. Of course, we need to. Japan has had to import more energy from elsewhere, but I think that there's a real opportunity here. I think of Japan still with this identity as being very motivated in technology, very ambitious, very hardworking, and very creative. And that is the spirit that we need to harness if we are going to be able to get through this time where we have to make an energy transition. And we need to think about the alternative energies that are now proving to be more possible than even a few years ago. I mean, what was impossible 5 years ago is not impossible today with respect to solar, with respect to wind. And another thing that I think the world thinks of when they think of Japan is geothermal activity because of hot springs and, all the earthquakes. I mean, these are resources that I feel haven't really been utilized and haven't really been harnessed by the creativity of the Japanese. And I think the spirit of creativity and imagination and dreaming and really following our hopes, that is what young people today, not only in Japan, but all over the planet, must do if we are to get through this period. And if we can look at this as not just this heavy challenge, if we can look at this as this incredible opportunity for truly contributing to changing the world, I feel that then we can see that this is the biggest cause that a person could have in their lifetime. This is a time when each of us matters in the global community. This is a time that calls on all of us to truly find our personal gift to the world. And what's more exciting than that?